She took off into the Pacific and never came back. No wreckage, no body, no final transmission that made any sense. Just silence, vast, blue, and absolute. It was July 2nd, 1937. Amelia Earhart, the most celebrated aviator on the planet, was 39 years old and 17,000 miles into the most ambitious flight any human being had ever attempted. A circumnavigation of the entire Earth along the equatorial route. She had already crossed Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. She had flown over jungles, deserts, and open ocean. She had done things that men twice her age refused to try. And now, on the longest and loneliest leg of the entire journey, somewhere between Lae, New Guinea, and a tiny coral speck called Howland Island, she disappeared. To understand how this happened, you have to understand who she was. Because Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot. She was a symbol. Born in Atchison, Kansas in 1897, Amelia Mary Earhart grew up in a world that had very clear opinions about what women could and could not do. She ignored every single one of them. At 23, she took her first flying lesson and immediately knew. This was it. This was the thing. She saved her own money, worked odd jobs, and bought her first plane, a bright yellow biplane she named the Canary. She was hooked. By 1928, she became the first woman to cross the Atlantic as a passenger. She hated that distinction. She wanted to do it herself under her own power on her own terms. And in 1932, she did exactly that, alone, in a single-engine Lockheed Vega. In the dark, through ice storms, landing in a farmer's field in Northern Ireland because she'd run out of fuel and couldn't make it to Paris. It didn't matter. She had done it. The first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Charles Lindbergh had done it 5 years before her, and the world gave him a parade. Amelia did it alone in 1932, and the world gave her a parade too. But she was already planning the next thing. That next thing became the around-the-world flight. Her navigator was Fred Noonan, a brilliant but troubled man known for his exceptional skill and his complicated relationship with alcohol. Together, they departed Miami on June 1st, 1937, heading east. For 30 days, they flew through monsoon rains, mechanical issues, and exhaustion. But they kept going. By the time they landed in Lae, New Guinea, on June 29th, they had roughly 7,000 miles left, almost all of it over open ocean. The final leg, from Lae to Howland Island, was 2,556 miles. Howland is barely a mile and a half long. Finding it in the middle of the Pacific, using 1937 navigation technology, was like threading a needle from 100 feet away, in the dark, with shaking hands. They had a radio. They had a sextant. They had dead reckoning, a method of navigation that calculates position based on speed, direction, and time. What they didn't have was a reliable way to communicate with the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca, which was waiting at Howland to guide them in. The communication plan broke down almost immediately. The Itasca was transmitting on one frequency. Earhart was receiving on another. The two were not fully synchronized. For hours, the Itasca heard Earhart's voice, increasingly tense, increasingly concerned, but could not get a clear signal back to her. At 7:42 in the morning, she transmitted, "We must be on you but cannot see you. Gas is running low." At 8:43, her last confirmed transmission. "We are on the line of position 157-337. We'll repeat this message. We are running north and south." And then, nothing. The U.S. Navy launched the largest search and rescue operation in American history up to that point. 66 aircraft, 9 ships, 250,000 square miles of ocean searched. They found nothing. Not a wing, not a life raft, not a single piece of wreckage. On July 19th, 1937, 17 days after she vanished, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan were officially declared lost at sea. The theories came immediately and have never stopped. Some say they simply ran out of fuel and went down in deep water. Some say they landed on a remote island called Nikumaroro and survived for weeks as castaways before dying. A 2017 photograph sparked renewed debate when analysts believed they spotted two figures on a dock that resembled Earhart and Noonan, though the photo was later disputed. Others went further. She was captured by the Japanese. She survived and lived under a new identity. She faked her own death. The theories multiplied because the silence multiplied. And silence, when it surrounds someone that large, never really stays quiet. Forensic expeditions have traveled to Nikumaroro multiple times. Researchers have found bone fragments, a woman's shoe from the 1930s, a zipper pull consistent with American clothing of that era. None of it has been definitively confirmed as hers. The ocean has not yet given her back. But here is what we know without question. Amelia Earhart looked at a world built to contain her, and she flew right over it. She set records not because records mattered, but because limits needed to be broken. She once wrote, "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity." She acted, she flew, she vanished. And somewhere out there, beneath 2 miles of dark Pacific water, or on a forgotten reef, or in some archive we haven't opened yet, the answer is still waiting. The sky took her, but it never took what she stood for.